I'd like to encourage you to keep going with this. The importance of living to our spiritual potential cannot be overstated. Men and women both have to learn that skill. Author Richard Rohr talks about recognizing and balancing masculine and feminine energies. The world is at an interesting point with respect to gender, and as this chapter unfolds, you'll see that we've been taken in by stereotypes, biases, and other influences that makes getting to the heart of God more difficult. This work is not about claiming male superiority. Up or down, good or bad, is the wrong metric. We want to fulfill our true potential, made in the image of God, both male and female. Let's glory in who God made us to be. Chapter 2. Is there such a thing as masculine spirituality? Perhaps the term sounds new, strange, even wrong or unnecessary. Why would we bother speaking of a spirituality that's especially masculine? Is there anything to be learned here? Don't we all come to God the same way? I'm convinced that there are different paths because men and women pay attention to different things. Filmmakers know that. Book publishers know that. Advertisers know that. Salespeople know that. Almost everybody knows that except the clergy. Fortunately, it's strongly validated in universal sacred stories, legends, and myths, which are invariably written for men or women, and different patterns are found in the Judeo-Christian scriptures too. That'll be evident by the end of this book. First, I want to say that a masculine spirituality is not just for men, although it is men who are most likely to have to rediscover and exemplify it. Strangely, it's an approach that many women are more in touch with today than men. Women have been encouraged and even forced to work on their inner lives more than men in our culture. They're more open to the whole terrain for some reason. In general, women are ahead of men in recognizing their feminist perspective and also in integrating the so-called feminine and masculine parts of themselves. Their inner journeys and outer scholarship have left many of us men in the dust. Our sisters' pursuit of the feminine voice has made men aware that there must be an authentic masculine somewhere. But what is it? We know instinctively that masculinity cannot be the same as patriarchy. Quite simply, it's the other side of feminine energy. It's the other pole, the complement, the balance, the counterpoise. I know I'm taking a great risk in saying this. Many believe that it's a unisex universe and all gender distinctions are culturally and artificially created. Even if that were true, although I believe that is too easy closure on the subject, I think both men and women can profit immensely from learning by comparison and contrast, without denying that there are many degrees and stages in between any classic polarities. Think of it as a teaching tool, a way of learning. In the Chinese view of the universe, for example, it is the yang or masculine principle that is always the necessary complement to the yin, the feminist principle. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's half of the image of God. God created man in his image. Male and female he created them. Sexuality itself is the longing for wholeness between the two. The archetypal pattern is so deep that many languages have masculine and feminine words. I'm not saying that males are characterized by exclusively masculine energy and that females hold only feminine. In fact, quite the contrary. Although there has been a tendency in most cultures to stereotype, classify, and hold the sexes in one predictable type of energy and behaviour. Unfortunately, this tendency has kept us immature, unwhole, compulsive, and unready for living a life of love, human or divine. Paul says, "There is not male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." The new humanity that we are pointed toward is not neuter or unisex or even oversexed, all of which make love impossible. In Christ, we are whole, one, in union, integrated, holy, holy. That is the final product of the Spirit's work of making all things one. It is the consummate achievement of God in Christ, who reconciles all things within himself and invites us into the ongoing reconciliation of all things. As an unmarried male, Richard can make little sense of his state unless he finds some way to awaken and love his own inner feminine soul. Without it, he's a self-centered bachelor, a dreamy creator, a dried-up root. A man without his feminine soul is easily described. His personality will move toward the outer world of things, and his head will be his control tower. He will build, explain, use, fix, manipulate, legislate, order, and play with whatever he bothers to touch. But he will not really touch it at all, for he does not know the inside of things. He has no subtlety, imagination, ability to harmonize or live with paradox or mystery. He engineers reality instead of living it. In fact, he's afraid of real life, and that's why the control tower of reason and pseudo-control works overtime. It's the only way he can give himself a sense of security and significance. He's trapped in part of the picture, which is dangerous precisely because he thinks it's the whole picture. Jesus said, "Because you say, 'I see,' you in fact remain blind." Corporately, this has become the myth of Western civilization. It's largely written by men who've controlled the power, the money, the corporations, the church, the military, and the morality. What we call reality and are almost totally addicted to is largely a construct of men who frankly not worked on their inner lives. They've not gone inside. They've not learned trust, vulnerability, prayer, or poetry. They, and the civilization we've inherited from them, are in great part unwhole and even sick. Until males and cooperating females recognise this unwholeness, this anti-incarnationalism posing as reality, we have no hope of loving or knowing God. We will, in fact, be threatened by wholeness and replace, as we generally have, any daring biblical faith with little schemes of salvation. Thomas Merton called them private holiness projects. Psychologists call them ego agendas. In men's work, we call it building our tower. Basically, this is a transfer of the business world of win, achieve, prove, succeed, control to the realm of the spirit. And it just doesn't work. It's the anti-gospel. There is a better way. For starters, a masculine spirituality would emphasize movement over stillness, action over theory, service to the world over religious discussions, speaking the truth over social niceties, and doing justice instead of any self-serving charity. Without a complementary masculine, spirituality becomes overly feminine, which is really a false feminine, and is characterized by too much inwardness, preoccupation with relationships, a morass of unclarified feeling, and religion itself as a security blanket. This prevents a journey to any place new and fosters a constant protecting of the old. It's no-risk religion, just the opposite of Abraham, Moses, Paul, and Jesus. I believe much of the modern, sophisticated church is swirling in what I'll describe as a kind of Neuter religion. It's one of the main reasons that doers, movers, shakers, and change agents have largely given up on the church. As one woman said to me, after a while, you get tired of the in-house jargon that seems to go nowhere. A Neuter spirituality is the trap of those with lots of leisure, luxury, and self-serving ideas. They have the option not to do, not to change, not to long and thirst for justice. A Neuter spirituality inoculates us against a deep spiritual journey. That's why I call it Neuter. It generates no real sexual energy or life. A masculine spirituality would be one that encourages men to take the radical gospel journey from their own unique beginning point, in their own unique style, with their own unique goals, which is what we end up doing anyway. But now, with no doubt or apology or need to imitate our sisters or even our fathers, for that matter. That takes immense courage and self-possession. Such a man has life for others and knows it. He does not need to push, intimidate, or play the power games common to other men, because he possesses his power with surety and calm self-confidence. He's not opinionated or arrogant, but he knows. He's not needy of status symbols because he draws his identity from God and from within. He does not need monogrammed briefcases and underwear. His identity is settled and secure. He possesses his soul and does not give it lightly to corporations, armies, nation states, or the acceptable collective thinking. Male saints are, quite simply, people who are whole. They trust their masculine soul because they've met the good masculine side of God, whom we've called the Father. The Father taught them about anger, passion, power, and clarity. He told them to go all the way through and pay the price for it. He shared with them his own creative seed, his own decisive word, his own illuminating spirit. They're comfortable knowing and they're comfortable not knowing. They can care and not care without guilt or shame. They can act without success because they've named their fear of failure. They do not need to affirm or deny, judge or ignore, but they're free to do all of them with impunity. A saint is invincible. There are many reasons why a healthy masculine spirituality has taken so long to emerge. The state needed conformists and unfeeling warriors to go about its business, and Holy Mother Church seemed to want children more than what Jesus called bridegrooms, and I would call mystics. But I'm convinced there's a more fundamental reason why men and women have failed to love and trust their masculine energy. It's this. The vast majority of people in Western civilization suffer from what I will identify in this book as the father wound. Those who have this wound have never been touched by their human father. Either he had no time, no freedom, or no need. But the result is children who have no masculine energy. They will lack self-confidence and the ability to do, to carry through, to trust themselves because they were never trusted by him. They fear and sometimes even hate the masculine side of God for very understandable reasons, but the loss has been incalculable. If there's one very good reason for God to reveal himself as the Father of Jesus, it's because that's where most people are wounded, unfeeling, unbelieving, and unwhole. With Philip the Apostle, we all join in, Master, show us the Father, and that'll be enough for us. Without facing, feeling and healing this wound, I'm sure that most men will continue to live lives of pseudo-masculinity. Business and bravado as usual, dishonest power instead of honest powerlessness. And the sons and daughters of the next generation will repeat the sad process all over again. Today, too many of God's sons are without dignity, self-confidence, or true power. They have little inner authority and predictably over-rely on outer authority. They look like the oppressors, but have no doubt they are really the oppressed. We believed the false promises of the system even more than women and are now trapped at what is supposed to be the top. We need true friendship, male and female. We need our also feminine souls. We need fathers and brothers. We need a good and also masculine God to find our way back into the human circle. We need ourselves from the inside, yet we need to act on the outside. It's a dance. The spiritual man in mythology, in literature, and in the great world religions has an excess of life. He knows he has it, makes no apology for it, and finally recognizes that he does not even need to protect or guard it. It's not for him, it's for others. His life's not his own. His life's not about him. It's about God.